Proud of her calling. Dear Editor, at last my doctor husband and I are living on a farm near enough to a small town for my husband to commute. We have 7 children, 3 to 13. We are here on the farm because we feel the farm is the only place to give them the very best advantages in life. The other day our Stevie, 3, was out with me as I hung the washing on the line. All at once he came to me, face beaming. "Birdie, say my name," he said. As I listened, it did sound as though the little Phoebe was calling, "Stevie, Stevie." The finest advantage I can offer my children is this chance to know nature intimately. Perhaps we will never be able to give them training on musical instruments, but if we can train them to attune their hearts to nature's music, we will have given them something that will stay with them through life, no matter where they may be. Can it be true that there are those who resent being called farmers? Through the ages, in spite of drought, floods, depression, and political upheavals, farmers have stood for strength, dependability, and security. I'm thrilled when anyone speaks of me as a farmer's wife. I'm proud of the name. ESP, Arkansas. We use our things. Dear Editor, whenever I am tempted to put pretty things away and not use them, I think of a neighbor I had. She was fine to visit with over the garden fence or in my home, but it was no joy to go into her home. It was beautiful, but the polished floors were covered first with new rugs and then with old rugs, and where there wasn't any rug, there were heavy papers, so you couldn't possibly mark the floor. The chairs were all covered so they wouldn't get dusty or scratched. She never used her best dishes for fear they would get nicked or broken. Her beautiful linens were laid away so they wouldn't wear out. Children were not welcome in the house, as they might leave a mark or fingerprint on something. One day Mary died of heart failure. Within a year, Joe was married again. All the old rugs and coverings disappeared. The costly china is used every day, and on wash days, the most beautiful linens hang on the line. 4 healthy, sturdy boys have come to bless the home. As we see them learning to swim, having water fights, or sailing boats in the bathtub, sliding down the banisters, or playing train with the furniture, we wonder, what would Mary say if she could see all this? We are thoroughly convinced that we ourselves shall use and enjoy all our pretty things and not save them for wife number 2. Neighbor, Kansas. Another security plan. Dear Editor, I was much interested in the family security plan sent in by a South Dakota reader, for we too were married in 1931, have gone through 6 years of crop failures, and still are on top because of a similar plan. We have saved enough to start with and still have a reserve to carry us through if we had a crop failure, which we had. Before we were married, we made this agreement. 1. Never to buy anything we didn't have the money to pay for. 2. Not to borrow money we had no assurance of being able to repay. 3. To make it a point to always have enough in reserve to take care of emergencies, such as hospital bills and doctor's bills. Luckily we did. for we have needed it. 4. Last, to carry as much life insurance as possible without it being a burden. By following this plan, we have always had plenty to eat and wear, have kept farm equipment in good repair, have had peace of mind from knowing we were not in danger of losing any of our possessions if payments were not met. This more than repaid us for some pleasures we have denied ourselves in order to follow our plan. Looking ahead, Nebraska. As long as there are homes. Dear Editor, as long as there are homes to which men turn at close of day, as long as there are homes where children are, where women stay, if love and loyalty and faith be found across those sills, a stricken nation can recover from its ills. As long as there are homes where lamps are lit and prayers are said, although the people falter through the dark and nations grope, with God Himself within those little homes we may have hope. BFG, Illinois. And the tea kettle kept on singing. Dear Editor, the mercury was hovering around 0. The children started off to school in woolen clothes and fleece-lined overshoes. Husband at the barn had the sheep to thank, for he could defy the cold. In the house, fires were holding winter at bay. The tea kettle was singing and spouting vapor that floated away to help build castles on the window panes. Mother was beating an egg for noodles for the beef broth simmering on the back of the range. The room was filled with steamy aroma, a squeaking in the snow outside. The door opened. In stepped Mrs. Smith and closed the door briskly. "Oh, how warm in here," she exclaimed. "What are you cooking? It has me hoping that dinner isn't far off." "Just some scraps of beef and noodles for the broth," Mother answered. "George told you I have a quilt in, and I'm glad you've come to help in the quilting." Well, just sit here and talk to me until I have these noodles finished. It was only 10 o'clock when they sat down together at the quilt. How their needles and tongues did fly. Laughter, too, rippled along merrily. At 11, Mother fixed the fires, put the potatoes in the oven, stirred up some cupcakes, brought a relish and a jar of red raspberries from the cellar, spread a clean cloth, and set the table for 3. Mrs. Smith, quilting on, listened to Mother's flying steps. Tabby, stretched by the fire, was the picture of comfort. There was a new smell of baking potatoes and cake. Brewing tea added its fragrance. The cold scurried over the floor as Father entered. "I stopped in the hen house," he said. "8 eggs. Not so bad for this cold day. I'll take warm water to the hens again after dinner. Tank heater keeps the ice out of the watering tank at the barn. Hope the fire holds through the night. Hello. Got company?" "Sure. Mabel came over to help with the quilt." "Hello, George," came from the sitting room. "No, I didn't come to quilt. I came to escape a little of this dreadful winter. Some way it's never winter in Bess Worth's house." "Now, don't brag on my wife," Father said banteringly. "It's all I can do to live with her without that." Comfort, Pennsylvania. I look for tulips. Come spring, I always want to get outdoors, rake up the yard and leave the inside chores. All winter I just read or sew or knit, but spring days such things don't appeal a bit. I gather sprays of winter jasmine green, a day or so indoors and flowers are seen. I look for tulips and for daffodils, planted in rows beneath the windowsills. I brush the leaves away in sunny places, hoping to see my pansies' lovely faces. It's hard to wait to see my plants peep through, but each warm day brings with it something new. I find a likely spot beside the shed, and there I make my early lettuce bed. I get my catalogs at night and order seed, so when the time comes I'll have all I need. And when, as sometimes happens, spring is late, it seems to me that I can hardly wait to get right on the ground and dig. You ought to see me in my garden rig. I guess I am a farmer born and bred, for come spring nothing else is in my head. Patsy, New Jersey. For Patience by Florence Clark McLaren. God give me patience with small hands that cling and hinder, with small feet that run so fast to mischief. I must be so wise to meet the endless eager questioning, to keep the faith in those clear anxious eyes. From daylight till the last good night is said, so many needs that I alone must fill. I must be strong who know myself so weak, must guide their feet where mine go stumbling still. Mary, who raised a boy in Galilee, did you long sometimes for the end of day? And did you ask for patience when you bent at night above a sleeping child to pray?